To Muskegon Rotary, I'm Jason Pisecki. We've got a great meeting today. We're going to hear from one of our own, DJ Hilson, and one of our formerly owned, Chris Bernard. They're going to talk about the Safe Seniors Collaborative. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have a reflection from Gene Mountain and an induction today as well, and we'll do the four-way test at the end of the meeting. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our reflection.
Hi, everybody. I moved to Muskegon 7 years ago, and when I first came, I used to walk the bike path and sometimes ride my bike too, but usually walking the bike path. I met a lot of people, and almost always there was a question, why did you move to Muskegon? And of course I had a ready answer because I moved here to become the pastor of a church here. But there was also that implication, and many people said, why would anyone move to Muskegon? And I knew at that time that that was not an accurate question to be asking, and yet I heard it so very much. And in recent years, I haven't heard that question as much when I say I'm not from here. But joining Rotary has helped me to understand the strengths of the Muskegon community better than I had before my joining Rotary, and I appreciate that. I'm sharing this with you today because I have an announcement to make that I will be retiring in July, and July 17th will be my last Sunday at Harbor of Grace. And I will be moving to Syracuse, New York, where my son and daughter-in-law and two granddaughters live. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm not excited about leaving Muskegon. It's a great place, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to be here. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for the city of Muskegon. Thank you for all the good gifts that you give us and for all the service that we are able to do in this city. We ask your blessing upon us all as we have lunch together and as we share our lives with each other. And we ask your blessing upon Rotary as we serve others. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, enjoy lunch, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes with our introduction to visiting Rotarians and guests. To last, which I'm sure you all know, being very scholarly Rotarians. So visiting Rotarians and guests, Megan, Myra, Annette, Emily, Michael, Eric, Lisa, if you want to come up with your guests, Jackie will hand you the mic. You can hit your mark for our friends on Zoom. Looks like Annette's got the inside position here.
Hello, Annette. So, orange mark, thank you.
Hello, I'm pleased to have as my guest today my brother, Ralph Wellington, visiting from Philadelphia. And his introduction to Rotary was a number of years ago when he was a Rotary exchange student.
Thank you. Okay, you're next on the orange mark.
Hello, Megan Bayard-Caraba here. I have a wonderful guest with me, Emma Garrow. She is a graduate from Fruitport High School and one of our most recent recipients to our Umbright Austin Scholarship Award.
Pleased to introduce the club to Gary Beyer. Gary is a Vice President Commercial Lending at Independent Bank. I told him we don't have enough darn bankers in this club, so please join us. Gary works the Lakeshore for Independent Bank, lives in Hudsonville with his wife. Two kids are out of the nest and active in community endeavors. Thanks.
Hi, Emily Morgenstern. I am here with Kelly DeVos. She is BSA in Compliance at Shelby State Bank, and I know her through being the chair of our Silent Observer Committee at the Chamber, and she is a potential Rotarian.
Good afternoon, Michael Ramsey here. I brought with me today Brennan Gorman, a liquor lawyer at Brouwer Vanderveen Law. He is also a former JC. He and I have served on many community engagement endeavors together. We're hoping to snag him here at our level now. And he's currently running for the new 87th District for State Rep to replace Terry Sabo. So if you guys would like to chat with him, find him after. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Myra Dutton. I have as my guest today Kenesha Weller, who is the Human Resource Manager at HGA Support Services and a potential Rotarian.
Hello, Lisa Stafford, and I would like to introduce to you Steve Grunick. He is a recovering banker after 25 years. He was hired by Cafesco and recently promoted to COO. Steve.
Hello, Marjorie Jones here. I'm going to introduce you to my daughter, who is here to help me celebrate my birthday. And she had time today when she's not selling hockey jerseys. So this is Carolyn. Thank you.
All right, on to our program. Chris Colley is going to introduce our speakers today. Chris.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce to you a great program on the Safe Seniors of West Michigan Task Force and Collaborative. AgeWell Services is very proud to be part of the host agency for this program, which really is a collaborative effort with law enforcement, prosecution, adult protective services, and many other practitioners, including Mercy Health Geriatrics and Health West, where we are advocating and protecting older adults who are victims of neglect, abuse, or financial exploitation. I want to say that a few years ago when we kind of came up with this concept of how it would look like if we created a system and continuum of care for seniors around this issue, that it was an idea that we had to kind of say, what would it look like if we utilized the Children's Advocacy Center model and utilize that as kind of a basis of a best practice? I'll tell you that today, everyone is turning their heads. Everyone is looking at Muskegon all across the state and actually across the United States as to what are you doing it, how are you doing it, and how can we replicate it? So we could not be more proud of how far this team has come in just a few years. And we want to thank the Muskegon County Senior Millage and all of you as taxpayers that helped to support this program and really funded the seed to get it off the ground and running, because now it is taking hold and it is incredible. So I can't wait for them to share this with you. And we want to give a special shout out to the prosecuting attorney's office, of course, Norton Shores, and Muskegon Township and the Sheriff's Department, who all dedicate members to this task force as well as resources. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Chris Bernal, the program coordinator, whom many of you know through her efforts of coordinating 1 in 21, as well as the Community Coordinating Council, so she is no stranger to this club. And of course, the man who needs no introduction is our esteemed prosecutor, DJ Hilson, who literally, without him, none of this would be possible. So thank you.
I pay her to say that. Well, first and foremost, it is always an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to stand before this club and present what I think is one of the best, if not the best programs in the state as well as our nation. To Chris Colley's point, what we're going to talk about today, the only really replicant of it is the Attorney General's office. They have a senior kind of task force. But other than that, between her office and this particular task force, this doesn't exist anywhere else in the state of Michigan. So again, Muskegon leads the way in what I think is very innovative and certainly protective program for our senior citizens. And as the first slide, or as the introductory slide indicates, it really doesn't happen without a team approach. And we're going to talk about that throughout the course of this presentation. But this is a team approach, and I tell you what, again, it just blows me away to the level that all these agencies are so dedicated and so passionate about this issue and as to why we're so successful. So let's get to some brass tacks here. So ultimately, the reason why looking at senior abuse, whether it be financial or physical or any kind of exploitation, is so important is that, one, the costs. The costs not only to the seniors. So if you can imagine, and we see this more often than we really like to say we see it, senior citizens who have worked their entire lives, sometimes 30, 40, 50 years, and built up their nest eggs so that they could live a comfortable retirement, watching those nest eggs evaporate before their eyes, sometimes not even knowing it because of the individual who's doing it, but oftentimes it's because of the fact that they are so isolated and alone that when somebody pays attention to them, whether it's for good or bad reasons, they latch onto it. And it's amazing how closely latched they stay to that, regardless of whether they believe it's true or not. And so the financial cost and certainly the emotional cost to our senior citizens is exponential when it comes to this type of abuse. For society, again, if you can imagine, our senior citizens, our baby boomers and everybody kind of above that, what they contribute to a community, what they contribute to, for example, this club, and when we lose that because of them losing maybe if socially they feel embarrassed to be socially active anymore, or financially because they can no longer contribute to a community, can you imagine the impact that it has on a community such as Muskegon or anywhere else? And finally, for us, and this is, I guess, the reason why we want to bring awareness, not only to you as Rotarians, but as Chris will talk about, the outreach that is part of this program where we're trying to touch as many of those senior citizens, those organizations that are part of making our senior citizens thrive here in Muskegon County, so they understand the issue and understand that there are people here who are empathetic, sympathetic, and ready to help. All right, so let's talk about some numbers here for a second. First of all, this is a staggering number, 10%. So 1 in 10 of older adults experience some sort of abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. That's a staggering number when you think about the number of senior citizens that live not only here in Muskegon but across our nation. The financial loss, again, from what we can tell from the statistics, it's in the billions. And that's just, and we're going to get to these next numbers here in a second, that's just what's reported. And that's a key element to all this. That's just what's reported. And here's the reason why. 1 in 24 are the number of cases actually reported. And we'll get to some of the reasons why those numbers are so low and the importance of this particular team and task force. So remember that number. 1 in 44 cases of financial exploitation are reported. And I want you to appreciate the reasons why. One of the reasons, probably one of the biggest reasons, is just out of pure embarrassment. That when you answer that email or that phone call, you give your personal information via email or phone because you think somebody that's near and dear to you is in jail somewhere and they need bond money. Or more importantly, and the next numbers will prove this, your son, your daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter, because of whatever reason, is stealing money from you, and then you find that out only to be embarrassed that you let that happen. Those are the reasons, a lot of the reasons why we see such low numbers. And again, why this particular team approach and task force is important, because we're trying to not only talk about the various scams that are out there so that those can be avoided, but we're also trying to reassure those that might be victimized that it's okay to report. It's okay to say enough is enough, and it's okay that it happens to be somebody that you might know or love. So we look at this next 60% of abuse and neglect usually is a family member, and almost 86% of financial exploitation is a family member. And so this is true even in the cases that we've been seeing here in Muskegon County. A lot of family members taking advantage of those of their grandma, mom, and dad. And that's truly unfortunate. And again, as to why this multidisciplinary team approach is so very, very important, because it wraps around various agencies that the sole purpose is to provide not only some justice, but also some support as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Chris for the next portion of this.
So we thought we'd go back and forth a little so y'all don't fall asleep on us. Keep you interested. So as DJ said, the numbers are just staggering and alarming. So we have a team. So I'm going to tell you our origin story. And the reason I call us the Avengers, you notice on the title slide, is because we all bring different talents and strengths to this team as we fight crime and create this awareness. So the Elder Abuse Prevention Collaborative has actually been around since the 1980s. It was originally called the Tri-County Protection Team. In 2020, we rebranded it as Safe Seniors because we felt that spoke to our mission a little more. So that broader circle, so if you think of this as this bullseye, that broader collaborative is over 40 partners in Muskegon, Oceana, and Ottawa County that focus on prevention through education and advocacy. And then that next circle in is the Vulnerable Adult Multidisciplinary Team, or the MDTs as we call them. We developed that in Muskegon in 2018. And as Chris said, we modeled it on that child abuse advocacy model. And then we started one in Ottawa County in 2019. And we actually every month review cases, active cases, look at the victim as we investigate the crime and see what wraparound services they might need. And then in 2020, we were fortunate through the senior millage to form a task force in Muskegon County. So we have 3 dedicated detectives, one from the sheriff's office, one from Norton Shores, one from Muskegon Township, and we have dedicated prosecution. And they are focused on just these cases. And we're going to show you in a few minutes some numbers that that team has worked on. So the first part of that circle is this collaboration. So we have collaborative meetings every other month. We share what's going on in our world. We have nursing homes, legal aid, everybody who works with the older population. And that group is really focused on training opportunities, getting outreach materials out there. I do presentations to groups of seniors that talks about scams and how to avoid them, signs of abuse and what to watch for, and how to watch out for each other. And then we also advocate for policies and programs that will help our seniors. FEPA is short for Financial Exploitation Protection Act, and if we have some bankers in the room, they'll hopefully know what that means. What it means is now banks are mandated reporters. So that's a piece of policy that changed at the state level that helps us in this work. So now banks are mandated to report if they suspect financial exploitation. Just to show you some of the materials we have, and there's some on the back table, there's some on your tables. This is the kind of thing we try to get out in the community, so people are learning about this and talking about it, and also those presentations that we do. So now I'm going to turn it back over to DJ so he can tell you a little more about that team.
Great, thank you, Chris. So as has been said more than once, it takes, in this case, it does take a village to get to where we need to be. And so as you can see on this slide, these are all the agencies in that little green bubble there that are part of this multidisciplinary team. Adult Protective Services is like Child Protective Services for senior citizens. They are the agencies that gets, you know, there's a state hotline, they get a call, they go out and investigate complaints that come in. It could come in from, you know, a daughter from out of state, a son from out of state. They're the ones that are certainly the front line. If they determine that what they're investigating is potentially criminal, that's when law enforcement gets involved. That's when our team, our detectives get involved. And obviously my office works very closely with those detectives. In fact, it's routine that on a daily basis, one or all 3 of them are meeting with one of my senior assistant prosecutors, getting search warrants for records, talking about a particular investigation, working on issuing charges. Community mental health is a key component to this team. Obviously, again, when we talk about isolation and maybe being alone and not having anybody around, the mental health aspect of this is key and critical, because that's usually what triggers a lot of these older adults to fall for a lot of these scams, because again, somebody's paying attention to them, talking to them, telling them that they love them, sending them pretty pictures, I want to marry you, all that kind of stuff. The other really key component is that next one, that geriatric care physician. We've had, since this team, even though the physicians have kind of changed over time, we've had a dedicated physician that joins every month. And that person is really important because part of the evaluation is to determine a senior citizen's capacity. And that's key for criminal prosecution because that's an element, that's one of the elements that we have to meet. But also when it comes to guardianship and conservatorships and stuff like that, that is really critical. And to have somebody dedicated every month that as our go-to physician is incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Legal services, legal aid is part of our team. Again, when we talk about wraparound services, obviously services that the prosecutor's office can't really provide because we are dedicated to criminal law, legal aid steps in. And as I said, guardianship, conservatorships, and power of attorney services. We have members of those organizations who are ready to step in particular when there's financial exploitation and we need somebody there to start, essentially put a plug on the sinkhole and making sure this older person's money does not disappear quickly. But ultimately, it takes this village to make this thing work. More focused on the law enforcement prosecution side, and I don't want to overstate this. When we talk about these financial exploitation cases, they are probably one of the most complex cases that we investigate. Only because it's really all about records, bank records, land records, financial documents, basically following the trail of money, if you will, as it leaves the account. Where does it go and who's benefiting from that money disappearing? It does take a team like this in order to really properly investigate these cases. They're more difficult than any homicide case that I've ever done, more difficult than any other, garden variety criminal case. These take a lot of expertise and a lot of time and effort. And so because we have this team, we're able to provide that level of expertise and certainly that level of involvement. The other thing that's really great about our detectives is that they're specially trained and they go out with the help of Chris and the other team members and actually train our road patrol. So the first responders, the people that actually get the calls and go. So they understand when they're walking into a situation that involves a family that it may not necessarily be a civil issue, that actually may be criminal, and they recognize that and they know that they need to turn it over to the Safe Senior Task Force. Along with all the other outreach and education that we're ready and willing to provide to any senior, certainly any senior housing unit, anybody that deals with seniors here in the county, we are absolutely willing and able to come and present on scams and where you need to go and how you respond to some of these things. Because we think it's really important that education is a key component to stopping this level of abuse. All right. So the numbers, let's get to the nuts and bolts here. This team really began at probably the worst time it could have began. February of 2020, we got the okay from the county board to form this team, and we were ready to have this huge press conference. John Gale would remember this. We were going to have this huge press conference in March, and everything shut down. But crime didn't care whether COVID was here or not. And ultimately, this team continued on even as a result of the pandemic. And so we really kept churning and churning. You can see over the years the number of cases that have been looked at by our team. In year to date now, we have 87 new cases, 47 active cases. Total cases year to date is almost 380. As it relates to the prosecutions, understand that that little italics on the bottom there is not an exaggeration. When we were getting these cases before this team, it was kind of piecemeal, happenstance, and we would work with them. We now have either prosecuted or in the criminal justice system 80 cases. 80 cases, which is exponentially higher than it's ever been. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's a good thing. We're holding people accountable. We're working towards getting restitution back to those who've been financially exploited. It really is a phenomenal thing. And again, if you look at the outreach, which I think is super critical, over 1,400 participants in trainings over those years, and well over 24,000. One of the things that really was awesome during the pandemic, if I can say awesome and pandemic in the same sentence, is that when AgeWell was doing its curbside meal service, and we were reaching, I don't know, hundreds of seniors every week, we were inundating them with flyers. I mean, as part of their meals, they got information about how to protect themselves during the pandemic. Because again, remember, we were all isolated. So imagine a senior who's living by themselves, now super isolated during that time frame, and they really needed those services. And so that 24,000 number represents the incredible effort to make sure that seniors understood how to protect themselves and where to go if they felt like they were being exploited. The stories, there are a bunch of them. These are just a couple. The first one, APS was involved with this individual many, many times. And ultimately, as a result of the task force getting involved and investigating, we were able to move this person out of a very abusive situation into a protective place. And clearly, as the last part of that story talks about, she really thanked the team for saving her life, because that's how she felt. And it's just unbelievable. The second one is too similar. I mean, there's so many similar stories where, again, individuals who are isolated and feel alone, they get contacted by somebody from usually out of the country with either a very handsome man or a very beautiful woman picture saying, hey, I want to come to America. I would like to marry you. All I need is $5,000. And there is one particular individual who I didn't even know to this day, I think still won't let go of the fact of the picture sitting on his mantle of this very pretty woman who he's convinced is coming to marry him. And it's really sad to the point where it's people taking advantage of people who feel alone and isolated. Last one was really cool. Somebody got scammed by a publisher's house clearing. They thought they had to send $15,000 in, and it was kind of a middle, where we intercepted it was in Tennessee with the middle person who had no idea that there was a scam happening. They were just kind of the conduit to the scammer. We were able to stop that and deal with the Tennessee authorities and get that check back and stop it from being cashed. And that was, again, all the work of our detectives, really working hard. I think this is you, Chris, right? It is. Nope, go.
Tag team. See, we are a team even up here. So I'm going to talk really briefly, because I see my clock's ticking down, about the financial support. But we've talked a little bit about before, but it really is a village or a patchwork quilt. We call it a funding. We do senior millage. We rely on partners like the prosecutor's office giving us some pro bono time as they dedicate prosecutors to this. And then through some federal funding that we've received and will continue to try and get. Because those numbers up there, those were a couple weeks ago. We've gotten at least 6 more cases that have hit our task force since then. So we need to keep working on this. So I'm going to go through this really quickly because I think I'm going to get the hook in a minute. One of the things I want to say is that you're Avengers too, right? It takes all of us to help prevent this. So there's 5 ways our community can work on this. We can listen to each other to understand the challenges, especially of caregivers, because sometimes we find that's what happens. People get exhausted and tempers snap. They don't mean it to happen. So really listen to people. We can build a community that fosters social connections and supports. Reach out to professional services when help is needed. Educate one another. So I want you all to go out today and tell one person, hey, I heard this really cool program at Rotary today. Let me tell you a little bit about it. And then report suspected abuse, because as we saw, the numbers are just underreported. So you can call APS if you suspect anything is going on. Their centralized office will send that to our local office, and our team will get involved. Or you can call 911 or your local police department. And then on your tables, you'll see a card, and on the back side of that card are all these potential signs. So that's another thing we can do, is watch for these signs in our friends and our family members. And then these overlap. It's not always just financial exploitation, but it could be physical abuse as well, or emotional abuse. And then ask questions. I always say, if you're not sure about someone, maybe they come to yoga all the time, but all of a sudden they don't come anymore. Hey, what's going on with you? Why aren't you coming to yoga? How's it going with your son who just moved in and is living in your basement? Is that going well? You know, just questions. it's a good one. Because sometimes it's fine and sometimes not so fine. So just make sure you're connecting with your people and watch out for your people and ask questions. And it's always better to act on your instincts and be wrong than to not act and be right. And that is it. So I think we have time for questions.
Thank you, Chris and DJ. Anyone has any questions? Jackie has the mic. Of course, it's way in the back first. Do you want to hit Eric Seifert before that on the way?
I just recently learned about title theft. Is that a thing here in lovely
Title,
little
yeah.
Muskegon County?
So like home title theft, yeah, I guess, I don't know if it's necessarily hit hard here in Muskegon yet, but that's obviously something that we're going to be on the watch for. And again, it's an area where our seniors can be vulnerable. It's all about how you protect your information and who you're giving your information to. And that's, again, that's part of the outreach aspect of this, is to make sure that seniors understand that giving stuff over the phone, not a good idea. Via email, really not a good idea. And so we're trying to protect as best as we can.
Darlene?
Yes, I commend the program and especially the reactivation of all the activity related to it, having been involved in old activity 20 years ago. But I had a question, where do you secure your data from? That data you showed us, is that county, city, state? What is that based on?
So that particular slide was Muskegon and Ottawa combined. I maintain a database of all the cases that our team is working on, and then I pull
So
data
how
from
do you
them.
collect that data? Being a senior, I've not been surveyed, so I'm just curious.
And let me make sure, do you mean the first slide where it was like the 1 in 24, 1 in 40?
Yes.
Oh, that we get from national resources, like the
Okay,
National Center
thank you.
on Elder Abuse.
So we don't have any avenue of actually collecting local data?
Not for those particular data points.
Okay, thank you.
We're working on it.
Looks like we got one more question from our guest.
Hi, DJ. What percentage of these financial exploitation cases do you think are actually prosecuted and successfully prosecuted?
Well, as I indicated, right now we hit the 80 mark. So 80 that have been either gone through the system or in the system currently. So anything that gets charged is essentially, in my opinion, successfully prosecuted. We've been able to obtain over $1.7 million in restitution over this time period, and I'm hoping, and this is for the county commissioners in the room, that if I'm able to actually get a dedicated full-time prosecutor to this task force via dollars. So if you're sitting next to a commissioner, say, hey, give DJ what he wants. Then we are planning on really using a lot of different avenues for restitution collection, tax garnishments and things like that. So yeah, we have 2 to 3 times increased the level of prosecution as a result of this team.
But I guess the reason I'm asking is because, in my experience, so many of these cases where a senior is being exploited is somebody out of the state, out of the country.
Oh, yeah.
Via email. I mean,
So
those have got to be really hard to prosecute.
Those scams we actually turn over to our federal partners. Okay. And so we have contact with the FBI. So if it's an out of country, out of state, so for example, that Tennessee, we were able to kind of chase down. So within the United States, if we have an ability to kind of see where things are going, we probably can be a little more successful. Out of country, that's an FBI federal government issue, and we have an avenue that we turn that stuff over to them, to their team, and they do whatever they do with it. But locally, I mean, you have to understand that the cases that I'm talking about are all local. Those are local seniors being exploited by people who either A, live with them or are connected to them in some fashion. So the problem, even though it's a nationwide problem, locally this team has essentially opened up Pandora's box.
Just to follow up on that, the scams, that's why the outreach is so important, because that 15% of financial exploitation is 14% that are scams and strangers. It's really hard to get those funds back. So if we can stop it from happening in the first place. And then we do report. Every time we hear a scam, there's an FTC reporting system and an FBI reporting system, and they're building a huge database. And I like to think of it as this web that's eventually going to cover the nation and help us catch these guys.
All right, thank you very much, Chris and DJ. Another round of applause. For presenting today, our club's going to make a donation to community economic development on your behalf, and thanks again for a great presentation. Okay, we're up to birthdays, and I see no birthdays on my list. So Kim, do we have no birthdays this week, or did you or I? If your birthday is between today and next Wednesday, raise your hand. Marjorie Jones? Gary the guest? Well, we got to sing for Marjorie then. Just when we thought we had it down. Next week, that'll be our perfect week. All right, well, let's sing happy birthday to Marjorie. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to... All right, happy birthday. Okay, induction, John Noling, if you want to come on up with our soon-to-be newest Rotarian. Oh, before we do that, though, we're going to take 2 minutes because I'm skipping all over the place. Well, take your time. We're going to feature our vocational highlight this week, and we're going to hear from our Baker College president, Aaron Mikey.
Aaron Mikey, and I joined Rotary in 2003. I joined the Allen Park Rotary because a Rotarian asked me to join. His name was Tom Crow, and he asked me to join Rotary and become part of that community organization in Allen Park. So I'm married to Shanna. We've been married for 17 years. We were actually married on New Year's Eve. And we have 2 sons. Hunter is 13 and Tanner is 10. We are extremely busy with them in sports. They play football, basketball, baseball, track, weightlifting. And that's pretty much our life outside of Baker College and work and doing some community things. I am the president of Baker College of Muskegon. I have been at Baker College for 25 years. I have worked across the state. I started my career at Baker College in Owasso from 1997 to 1999. I moved to Muskegon campus from 99 to 2003 and then transferred to the Allen Park campus as a president, opened up a brand new campus in Metro Detroit. After that, I transferred to Owasso in 2014, and I was asked to come back to Muskegon. So I have made it very clear that this 5th move around the Baker College system would be my last move for me and my family. We just absolutely love the quality of life in West Michigan. I've been a club president 2 different times. I was the president in Allen Park, and I was the president in Owasso. I also served on a district conference committee, and I was a founding member of Launch Detroit. Launch Detroit is a micro lending project. In fact, it is the first domestic Rotary-sponsored micro lending project in the United States. Baker College was proud to be a founding member of that, and I was super happy to help kick that program off.
I can definitely vouch for Hunter and Tanner being very active. Aaron and I are neighbors, and those kids are always in the front yard playing some kind of sport or running up and down the street. So now we are ready for our induction.
Want me in front of this, though?
Just stay right here.
Oh, okay.
That way I can stay
We
here.
good? Ladies and gentlemen of Rotary, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Erica Patton. Erica was born like me at Hackley Hospital and attended Edgewood and Muskegon Heights Middle School and graduated from Muskegon Heights High School in 1997. She's the daughter of longtime Heights residents Charles Patton and Dolores Crosby. She has 3 siblings and 3 step-siblings, and notably her brother Quincy Crosby, a Big Red Muskegon High School grad, is playing now in the HBO series, playing Magic Johnson in the HBO series called Winning Time. She left Muskegon for Ferris, but that didn't feel quite right after a year, and she took a 2-year hiatus before moving to Montgomery, Alabama, to study at Alabama State University. There, she developed a great interest in history, especially civil rights history, and she graduated in 2004 with a history major, a master's degree, and a teaching certificate. For the next 10 years, from 2005 to 15, big years for you, she taught 10th grade American history and middle schoolers. She earned an Ed Specialist degree from Auburn University in 2010, but decided it was time to leave the South. She wanted to go east. So she ended up in Woodbridge, Virginia, just 22 miles from DC. There, she was in a very large district, and it was here that Erica learned a lot more about the science of teaching, she tells me, in her 1 year of high school and her 4 years of middle school teaching. As she puts it, I was raised in Muskegon Heights, but I grew up in the South. Coming back home in 2021, Erica learned of a principal posting at Muskegon Heights High School Academy and interviewed with Superintendent Arnetta Thompson, who will be joining our club in just a few more weeks. Her learning curve has been steep in this first year at Muskegon Heights High School Academy, and it's been my pleasure and Randy Lindquist's pleasure and a lot of us working to recruit students for life leadership and talk about Interact at her school. She's been very receptive to this, but in talking about Rotary over the last year, I've come to appreciate her as a leader in her community and in her school. Her attitude is best summed up by, don't count us out. Our kids deserve a seat at the table, but you have to be prepared. We don't get high school principals joining Rotary very often. In fact, in my 17 years, I don't recall, maybe you can help me, if we've ever had a high school principal join our club. We've had superintendents for sure, but it's our hope that you'll be at as many meetings as possible and take the learning that we experienced today and put it to good use in your professional work. She's a 4-year member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and she has contributed service to the Muskegon Heights youth football and cheer programs. She is very happy with the purchase of her home last November and looks forward to linking Rotary more closely with students at Muskegon Heights High School Academy. We are most happy to welcome Erica Patton as our newest member of the Muskegon Rotary Club.
Sure. Can I hand you this? Why don't you come over here?
Yeah, please.
Yes. All right, we'll get this, make this official. Fellow Rotarians and honored guests, the Rotary Club of Muskegon is privileged to induct a new member. We encourage you to learn about Rotary by actively participating in the club, including attending meetings, social events, and service projects. It's my pleasure to have your sponsor give you this pin by which your fellow Rotarians will recognize you in the community. We ask you to wear it proudly. I would also like to issue a challenge that you share the gift that has been given to you and invite another person with like qualities of character, reputation, and commitment to join our club within the next 3 months. The honor of becoming a Rotarian is only surpassed by sponsoring new members. Do you accept this challenge? She does. Thank you. Everyone, please rise and welcome the newest Rotarian in the world, Erica Patton. Welcome, Erica. Welcome very much. Okay, committee reports and announcements. While Troy Bell and Rob Taylor and Roger Morgenstern are making their ways up here, I have 2 Orville Crane related announcements. After our meeting today, we'll be going over to Rotary Park to plant a tree in Rotary in Orville's honor. So if you want to join us over there, we'd love to see you. Also, got a nice letter from the Boys and Girls Club thanking us for the gift our club made to Boys and Girls Club in memory of Orville Crane. All right, Roger, you are up.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Second Morgenstern with a mic today. Aren't you guys lucky? Hey, I am on the Seaway Run Committee, and we are in the closing hours before the run. We are going to have perfect weather for Saturday mornings. half marathon, 10K that my son's running in, and 5K and the 5K community walk, which I'll be walking in. We could still use volunteers. You can go to the Seaway Run website and volunteer, or if you just want to show up Saturday morning, we'll be there as early as 6 and 7 in the morning, and we will take volunteers right there at Heritage Landing. We'll probably put you in the food tent, so maybe you can get fed and volunteer. What a good deal. Kim sent out a reminder, I think a week or so ago, to people who have signed up. I was talking with Jason. I haven't had a chance to talk to Kim, but there's an email that you'll see that we'll forward to everyone so you know what's going on if you're still interested in participating in the run, or if you'd like to volunteer. And we'll try to get as much information to our volunteers as possible so that if you're like me, when you signed up 3 months ago, what did I sign up for? So I'm helping break down, which means I can walk and then break down. So, break down the equipment, not break down. No, yeah. No, Chris, we're not doing that. And Emily's in the audience. She would not want her dad to do anything like that. So, but thank you all for who have signed up. It's a big fundraiser for Rotary, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody Saturday morning. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Rob Taylor here. And oh, yeah, now I can see myself. All right. Anyway, Rob Taylor here, and of course, I'll be there Saturday morning, and you'll see me on my bike. I'm going to be leading out the runners and clearing the trail. You know. So if you're standing around on the trail, I'll be yelling at you to get out of the way. But I'm really up here for a little report out on the community mixer that we put on last Friday night at Monosaurus Park. That came about as a collaborative effort between our DEI committee and the city of Muskegon Heights. Doug Wood and Marcia Hovey-Wright and Brianna Scott from our committee worked with Troy Bell and Jennifer Ross and Kaya Thornton Hunter, putting all the plans together for that, and it came off as quite the success. The park was beautiful. We had beautiful weather. There was music, food, bounce house, face painting. I didn't get mine painted, though. It looks good enough as it is, right? and it was just, for me personally, it was a wonderful experience to work with all the people I worked with, and I met lots of people on Friday night. There was festivities going on all weekend. It was in conjunction with their Juneteenth celebration, and it was just a great experience, and I encourage everyone to dive into those kinds of experiences in the future.
Okay, our raffle. What are we doing first today, Mr. Seifert?
Hello? Hello? We're going to use my trademarked inside-out method where I award the riches of the day. First first $10, then $20, and then $5. I'll ask Chief John to pull the first ticket. $486.
Oh,
Gene
Gene
Fethke.
Fethke. Now for $20.
$10 for you, sir. Thank you. Pull another one. That's 2 tickets there, Gene. 565. 565.
No one wants $20. Wow.
I guess we draw another one. $511.
It's very quick.
Wait, is that Don?
You're not going to let that one go by.
Let's pull another ticket. And for $5 US. $500. Oh,
Roger, major award winner. Yeah. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. I want to thank Kenesha, Kelly, Brennan, Gary, Steve, Carol, and Emma. Welcome Erica to the club. Next week, you won't want to miss the meeting because we're going to be passing the gavel to our new president, Jane Klingman Scott. So you want to see how she runs the show here next week. If everyone can please rise, we'll recite the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?